How's it going, gurus? And welcome back to the IR Gurus channel. My name is Nick, and we are back here today to discuss script building. So I've heard that there's a lot of questions out there about how to actually build your scripts, how to do testing to make sure that you're pulling the correct information, how to know what's actually in that information, such as maybe certain types of fields. So the way we're going to address this today is we're just going to dive into scripts. I'm going to show you a couple of useful tools that you can find out on the knowledge base, and then I'll show you a couple of tricks that I've learned along the way. So if you guys think that this video is helpful, I would appreciate it if you give me a like and a follow. And then, of course, if you guys have any questions or concerns, or even advice on how we could improve our content or make new videos, please feel free to drop those in the comments below. I definitely appreciate any insight you guys have, and then that'll help us create this so that it benefits the entire group here. So let's get into this. So we're going to start out in scripts. Now, you can do this in playbooks, or you can do this in the customization settings, and in the scripts there. You would get to either of these by either playbooks here or into customization settings here and going over to scripts. So like I said, you can do this in either. I'm just going to use scripts because this is easier to just dive in and do a quick demo for this. If I was building out an entire playbook, though, of course, I can create that playbook and toss a script in there as well. So we'll click on new script here, and now we've got the ability to look at any of the scripts or anything that we want to do here with our script. So of course, this all depends on the object type and the type of incident data that you have access to. Of course, if it's a data table, you'll have certain access to the data table that you're dealing with. Same with, the attachments, artifacts, milestones, all of these things. All right, now before we jump into actually writing the script itself, there's a couple things that we should know to begin with. And that is the location of where all of our incident fields are. So if we jump over here to the layouts, we've got all of our incident fields over here. And so if I were to look at, let's see here, we'll look at the incident description. So the incident description, we can see here that the API name of that is description. Now, I will note that not every single one of the built-in fields, their name and their API name can be different. So you will want to watch out for that. But what we'll do here is we see the API name. So let's go ahead and jump into a script here so we can find actually where you would find this field within a script. So on the incident object type, we're going to look for the field. The way that we do this is first, we're going to grab the incident itself, and then we're going to look for the field. So in this case, it was description. So that's where that is going to be. And I'll get to this in just a second, but we've got a log feature that allows you to actually create a log, which you'll be able to see during testing. So we'll touch on that later, but I want to show you the incident itself. So what we can see here is the built-in incident, or the built-in field for this incident is in this location. We'll use this 2103 when we use that run button on the right-hand side. The run button is going to make changes if you have it telling it to make changes down here. This is not just a test button. That being said, you can use the logging ability, which we'll touch on to show you what data would be changed here too. So let's run it against this, and we can see what information we pull back. So right here, we can see that we pulled the content back, and that's for the incident description field. Now, I will point this out. This was actually a text area field. So the text area field is actually formatted a little bit differently. So you can see that it shows the format, which is HTML, and then you can see the content, which here is the text. So we can, for different things like this, such as a text area, We can also add on here maybe dot content because we just want the actual text. We hit the run again button so we don't have to keep typing in the incident number up here. It will use that same information to pull it again. And we can see here now we were actually able to pull the text. But that gives you the layout so that you can actually understand what the data is up here. And then you can understand too if you need to maybe change your description. So maybe you told it to do something with this or do something with this description, but it was actually in that dictionary format and you wanted the content. Maybe you wanted to parse something out of it. So you wanted the content, you didn't want the entire dictionary, and that's why it's failing on you because you're trying to parse a dictionary, not an actual string, and you need the string itself. So we can see that for a built-in incident, but what we're going to do here now is we're going to find a incident that I created earlier called testing text area. So similar, it's a text area again. But what we're going to do here is we're going to see that the API name is testing text area again. And we'll jump back in here to our script. And now what we'll try to do is we will run this to see what the value is. So we'll run it again, but we got an error. The reason we got an error was because of the fact that the built-in ones are in the root of the incident that we've got here. However, any of the customized ones, anything that's either brought in from maybe an integration or something that you guys have built out yourselves, that's actually going to be in a different location called properties. So if we type in properties and then we type in testing text area and I run it again, it won't error this time because it's going to come back and say, hey, this is, well, there's no content in here, but it actually found this variable that we were looking for. So that shows us how the data is structured within the platform. Now let's go about how to change a value within the platform here. If I wanted to change this field here, what I can do is I can do equals and then whatever I want to set it as. Now, text areas, because they are technically a dictionary when we pull the value of them, we can actually upload just a text string. So if I wanted to upload something like, let's grab this URL, what I can do is I can hit run again. And now you can see that it posted in there and it successfully is now in this incident. So let's take a look here. Yep, we can see that the testing text area has this as a variable. However, this is not clickable at all. So the way that we address that is, of course, by building that out in HTML. We'll rerun it, and we can see that this link is now uploaded here. So we can come back here, and now you can see that it is clickable. So it'll take us out here, and look at that. Right to where I wanted to go next. So what we're going to do here is we're going to touch on a few things. First is going to be the actual modules that you can pull in. The second thing is going to be these writing scripts operations, which are going to be super helpful whenever you're writing any kind of script. If you've got any questions as to what you can do, definitely look in here. You can also just search for operations and it'll show you all of these if you're trying to find it. But then as well, if you're trying to find it, you can just go from the SOAR designer guide, the configure scripts and writing scripts. And under that writing scripts is all of those operations. Before we dive into the operations, let's take a look at the Python 2, Python 3 differences. Because as many of you guys may know, if we're looking at our Python scripts, we can actually change between Python 3 and Python 2. Most of us are probably writing at Python 3 at this point, but Python 2 was in the system. It is called, it's actually more referred to as Jython because it does use Java and Python, which actually is what this KB talks about here. So this KB talks about the modules that can be used. So the different modules that are available in Python 3 are all listed right here. However, if you're writing in Python 2, you have a note right here that you can only import the Java util date, or of course the re modules. Those are the only ones you can import, which is why I highly recommend writing in Python 3 if you are doing so, because as you can see, a lot more options here. But down here, you can also see all of the things that are available to you in Python 3 when writing different integrations or when writing different scripts and stuff like that. So now this is where you can, of course, see everything that you've got available to you in the different languages. But let's jump into the operations themselves. The operations, we have the ability to use something like artifact. So if I was building out my script here at an object type of artifact, I have the ability to use the, go away from that because I keep clicking that over and over again. But I have the ability to use the artifact to grab different information. So such as if I wanted to grab um, the incident or the artifact ID, what I can do in here is erase all of this. I can do artifact, then dot ID. And now if I run this, I change the artifact type, I'll actually hit run here, and then we'll go to 2103, because then it's going to ask me which artifact I want. So let's say I want this artifact right here. I hit finish. Helps if I add my log here. So I can see that that artifact is artifact ID of 55. So the other thing we can do, if I go back to the artifact operations, is I can see the hits. So if I wanted to do something specific, if there was a certain type of hit, I can do artifact hits, run it again, and look at that. You can see that there's some hits involved in this artifact. You can see how it's laid out here. So you can start to actually parse this out. Now, the other thing I will say is, if you look at this, it is very, you know, we've got the logs here, and so the log is showing me what's in here, but I can't highlight this, so I can't grab any information out of this. So if I want to say, put this into my Python interpreter on my computer, and actually write the parsing script for how I want to parse this information out, the way that you can go about doing that is actually by writing it as a note. So if I do incident dot add note, and then I can do artifact dot hits. Actually, I will have to force this to a string, so I can do str. I can force this to a string. I can run this again, and then what it's going to do once it's finished here is I can go into the incident. I can look at the notes, and now I've got the note for how this is built out. So now I can just copy this out of here. I can open up my Python interpreter, and I can start writing the parsing script to this. Hope that helps. That's the way that I do it. If you guys have other ways that you guys do that, definitely comments below on how you guys do that. But I think that this is really one of the easiest ways to grab what I'm looking at and kind of understand exactly how I can parse this out to get the information I want out of it. So I've made the comments about how to do this. However, I've been showing you how to do the log stuff. Really, the log stuff is very simple. I've literally showed you how to do it here, but there are additional operations for that. So if we come in here and we go to log operations, we have the ability to to do different types of logs. So we've got the info, we've got warning, we've got error, and we've got debug levels. Now, all of these logs are actually stored in your logs within the Python or within the SOAR platform. So I'll leave a comment below once I figure that out of where the logs are actually stored. But you'll be able to see all of these logs running from your Python scripts. So of course you would just do log, then you would do whatever level you want to log at, and then of course the message that you want to build out. So those messages can be as complicated or as simple as you want them to be. If we look at some of the other things here, we have artifacts within the incidents, right? We have the attachments. We have, the fields and how to grab different things from fields. And really, this is something that you may only use the fields when you're actually trying to parse an email message, but that's how you would do that for doing email message parsing. So email message parsing is actually another one that is it's a little bit, there's a lot to it, and I've actually created another video, so I will link the video up in the top right here, describing how to do different things with email messages. But this one kind of stood out, so I did a separate video on that, and then I decided that I should probably do one kind of covering all of these in a more general sense. So some of the other important operations that we've got within the system are the helper operations. So you can create rich text. And basically what that means is you can take your string, you can have HTML code in that string, and then you can use the helper function for create rich text and drop that into your variable. So earlier when I was talking about the text areas allow you to have that HTML code in there so that it can add the URLs like I had over here in my text section. So I can do this over here. Now, as you can see, if I put HTML in there, the text area seems to pick that up just fine. But if you're ever having any kind of complications where the text area is not being picked up properly, or the text area is not picking up the HTML properly or anything like that, I highly recommend you use this create rich text to do that. So the way we can go about doing that is actually by taking a string. So if I got this text here, the way that I would want to use this is if I wanted to make sure that this gets put in there as rich text, what I can do is helper dot create rich text and then drop my text in there. And then what this will do is it'll guarantee that as I'm putting it in there, that it's going to put it in there as HTML. The way that you can see this is if we do that log again and we hit run here, we can see that the way that it put it in here was actually by giving it the format of HTML and then providing the content itself. Whereas if I were to just put in the string, it's just going to show me the string. And if the interpreter reads that as HTML, then great. If not, then that could be why, because it didn't change the format to HTML. So that is how I recommend doing the HTML, just to ensure that this format gets set properly. Some other things that are super helpful. So we'll jump back to this helper function because of the fact that we've got this find incidents. I kind of cover this in the email one as well, but we've got this query builder. And the query builder can be used to find different incidents within the platform based on a string of information. So here you can see we actually check to see if our query that we're building out here is checking the fields, as I mentioned, for the fields operation, for the incident name of something. So whatever the incident name is here. And then of course, if you want to change the way that it's presented to you by changing how the incidents are brought back in that list, you can do that. But then you can use things like the, as it mentions here, to use the helper to find the incidents. So that's the way that we can use that. Of course, after you build that, you can actually build the query, then use the query to find any incidents, and then associate your email messages to an incident there. Of course, we've got other things such as the notes. So if you're dealing with a note or you're dealing with a playbook, so playbooks are super helpful here. If you're trying to figure out how to write your script so that you can grab maybe the inputs. So that menu that pops up that you can ask a analyst or whoever's telling you to or telling an automation to run. You can actually grab any inputs that they provided there. With this, of course, you can grab function outputs by doing that, and it describes that down here. And you can do all kinds of other stuff, such as sub playbooks or creating different playbook variables themselves. So definitely take a look at this if you're trying to build out playbooks and trying to understand how the um, playbook information can be presented to being presented to you as you build this out. Of course, if we want to do something with rows, we can do that here as well. So this is a good one here. If we're trying to add something new to a row, LDAP data. Or actually, let's look at the LDAP query results. So drop this in here. We'll do LDAP query results, and you can see if you open this up that these are the API names for them. So the way that it would work if you're trying to add something new to a data table, you have the ability to first say what you're adding a row to. So let's erase all this. We would do first we want to name the row because we're going to add stuff to a row. So we'll do row or new row. How about we do that? New row, and then equals incident dot add row, and then it's going to ask for the data table name. So what we're going to do here is we're going to grab this, the API name for this data table, and now we've grabbed essentially this data table and we've called it new row. So now we need to define what each one of these new rows are. So if you actually type in new row now and you do a period, each one of these. So if I do something like grab this UID and I do that, and I can do equals, and then I can give it some kind of value. So what was this supposed to be? It was just a text field. Okay, so I can just give it some kind of text and say hello. Now, if I hit run again, so if we come over to this incident, and oh, I did not save it first. Save first here. And we'll go into here, and I'll refresh this since I added something new to this tab. You can see I added the hello there. Now, the reason that nothing else is filled out is because I didn't fill anything else out. If I wanted to continue to add to this, what I would do is just keep adding new row dot. So this now has each one of these filled out. So what I can do then is just start providing information to each one of these. And now if I rerun this, now you can see that I filled out this entire table. That is presented to us by coming out here and seeing that I've got all that filled out. So that's essentially how you would go about adding something to a data table. Of course, you can iterate through maybe a list of dictionaries and fill out multiple things if you want to do that. So that's kind of how that would go about. And you can do that at any level. But if you wanted to alter incident data, then of course you would have to be at the data table level here, where then I'm going to define which one that I'm going to alter. The rule operators. So if you're building a script for to run off of a rule, what you can do is you can use rule dot and then whatever variables you created within that rule. Meaning within a rule, if I create a menu item rule, I have the ability to create these activity fields down here. This is what I was talking about earlier with the inputs for a the pop-up box that asks you or asks your analyst for additional information when they're going to run an automation. You can build that here. And since there's a difference between playbook rules, of course, and rules, what you're going to do is, before I mentioned you could do the rule or you could do the playbook operations for playbook operations for the inputs. That is the same thing as doing the rule operations right here. It allows you to actually build out what fields the were asked for on this rule. One of the last things I want to touch on is actually the principal operators or operations. This actually allows you to pull information on the user that's actually activating something. So I actually have a playbook for this. Let's see if I have it on this system. Yep. Okay. So this assigned to me one. Essentially, this is using a script to do something super simple. I'm literally just taking the incident owner and reassigning the incident owner to the principal name. And so what this is actually doing, if I come back over here, I can do, so I can see the principal name here for myself. There you go. So it's going to take the email address, which is the principal name. Of course, if you just want to see the principal itself, we can, of course, run that, and it'll show you the ID of my user. The type is a user, and then the name is, my email address there. And then the display name is my username up here. So that's how you would be able to represent that information. All right, so there's one last one that I want to touch on, and this one's fairly new to me. I just started looking into this. This is the group operations. Now, what this actually allows you to do is you can search by a group name, and it will tell you if the user is in that group or not. The way that we would do this is actually by going to, well, first let's grab a name. So since this is me logged into the system, it's going to be looking at my groups if I have access to a certain group. So what I can do is you can look at my user here, John Doe. You can see that I am in the master administrators group here. So let's grab this one. And what we're going to do here is we are going to add the master administrators group, and I'm going to tell it groups.find by name and then master administrators. So what this is going to do is it's going to look up the master administrators group and let me know if I am in this group. And you'll see how this works in just a sec. All right. So here it presented me with some information saying such as this is obviously a group. Based on the type, the name is the master administrators, and the ID for this group is 18. But you can see that I pulled back information, and that's because I'm in this group. Now I'll show you if I'm not in this group, what that means. So you can see if we come back here, that's the only group I'm in. So we have another group that we're going to use. Let's just use the CISO group. So I'll do the same thing by the CISO group, and I will run it again. And this time it's going to come back as none because I am not in that group. So essentially what this operation is telling you is you can tell it to do something like look the group up. If the group is not none, that means I'm in that group. So go ahead and perform an action. And then you can also do an else, of course. If I'm not in that group, then pass or throw an error or something like that. But that allows you to do some additional activities here based on the actual group that you are in. So again, this one is fairly new to me. I haven't used this too much. I actually just recently found out about it. But I think this is going to be a super helpful operation here in the future as I start playing around with some additional ways to manipulate data and stuff within the platform. That kind of covers all of the operations. I showed you different ways, such as writing out to a note that we can grab information that we want to build a parser for. So that allows you to kind of have a full representation of how you can build scripts and use these scripts to really expand the platform. So I hope this helps. And if you guys would, please leave a like and give me a follow here. If you guys have any questions about how any of these helper functions or any of the other operations work, definitely feel free to comment below. I will try to help answer any questions that I can. And I hope that you guys have a good day, and I will see you next time.